What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. We're continuing with schedule preview and predictions for the 2021-2022 college football season. Today, we're going to talk about an underrated team. That's the Arkansas Razorbacks, a team that showed some major signs of improvement last year. How do I think they're going to fare in 2021? You're going to find out here in a little bit. Hey, the channel is only continuing to grow, so let's please continue to hit that subscribe button, continue to leave likes on the videos, help push the videos out to as many people as possible. Ring the bell, share the video, do anything you want. You can also tell me your thoughts on this video in the comment section below. Just, of course, as usual, be mindful of what you say. So without further ado, talking about Arkansas in 2021, you have to start out with just the improvement that they made last year. When we look at the record on the next slide, you're going to say, how has this team shown signs of improvement? That's not a very good record, comparatively speaking to what it has in years past, and especially with that being an all-SEC schedule. They showed some major signs of improvement, and they especially have some really darn good playmakers that are still currently on this roster. But we do have to look at what they've lost first. And, of course, what better place to start in the quarterback position? They lost some playmakers on offense, let me tell you. Felipe Franks. So the former Florida quarterback, of course, when he got hurt, then Kyle Trask stepped in, and the rest is history at Florida since then. And then for Felipe Franks, hey, I mean, solid season at Arkansas. Nothing really that you're be like, wow, that's pretty good. Nothing quite like that, but was still a solid option, helped improve this team. It's now all about whether or not KJ Jefferson can take that next step at quarterback for Arkansas, right? Rakeem Boyd is also gone. And if you don't know Rakeem Boyd, a fantastic running back, absolutely incredible, leaving this program as well. I believe went to the NFL. Just really was that good of a player. He was phenomenal. Shamar Nash gone at wide receiver, not a huge loss there. Don't worry, we're going to come back to the other wide receiver on this list. On the defensive side, you got guys like Jonathan Marshall, Xavier Kelly, and Enoch Jackson gone. And then off to defensive backs, Jerry Jacobs and Miles Mason. But the one guy that I really want to talk about that's on this list is a guy that, yes, we're going to come back to. It's wide receiver Mike Woods. Now, there's a guy by the name of Treylon Burks that is on this Arkansas team. And he, very, very good player. He's a top 10 wide receiver in the nation, in my mind. I really do like Treylon Burks. I think he's going to be fantastic this season for Arkansas. Going to have a really good statistical year if Jefferson, of course, can help him out and take that next step. But Mike Woods was going to be, in my mind, should have been the number 2. And then all of a sudden, seemingly just out of nowhere, Mike Woods decides to transfer. So Mike Woods is transferring over to Oklahoma, going to go join the wide receiver group there, seemingly looking to replace Charleston Rambo as Rambo transferred to Miami. So for Mike Woods and Arkansas, that takes a hit in the passing game because Mike Woods really was a good player. So we're going to have to see how the passing game fares this year. But hey, speaking of which, it's not about what you lost. It's about what you have. I mentioned KJ Jefferson is not on this list, but he's going to need to take that next step, right? He's going to need to do some really good things if Arkansas is going to want to have a pretty substantially good season or, again, improve majorly like they did last year. Traylon Smith coming back at running back was that second to Rakeem Boyd. First on the depth chart, should get starting role there. I think he's a solid option. Not as good as Rakeem Boyd, obviously, but still a solid option. I've already mentioned Treylon Burks, how good he can be. 2 other guys at wide receiver now that Mike Woods is out. Watch Davion Warren and Ketron Jackson. A couple guys you got to watch out there. There's also the tight end coming back in Blake Kern. And then they picked up someone from recruiting. So he's going to be a freshman this year. And he's listed as an athlete. Now, I've seen somewhere that he's listed as a running back. I've seen other places he's listed as a wide receiver. I've seen other places he's specifically just a punt and kick returner. Just different sites, different opinions, I guess. I even don't necessarily know where AJ Green is going to play this year, but a phenomenal young freshman coming in should give a boost to the Arkansas offense or defense, wherever he happens to play. Of course, was an Ironman athlete in high school. On the defensive side, you got guys like Eric Gregory at the defensive line, linebackers Grant Morgan and Bumper Poole, and the defensive back Jalen Catalong and Hudson Clark. So still some nice players all in all for Arkansas. I do think that the defense gonna, of course, have to take some steps up. And then this offense, I think it's going to have to play up to expectation for Arkansas to have a pretty substantial season. Meanwhile, here is the schedule for the Arkansas Razorbacks. You see in 2020, they went 3-7. So that's what I was talking about. You say, how does this team make signs of improvements? 3-7 is a horrible record. When you look at years past, that is substantially better. Of course, 3-7 in the SEC, 6th in the SEC West, but didn't play in a bowl game, of course, because of the record. Somehow Mississippi State did. Hey, you guys know how this works. I'm talking about some games more than others because they are more interesting matchups to me. If the day gets highlighted in green, it's a win. If it gets highlighted in red, it's a loss. So without further ado, talking about Arkansas in 2020, we're going to put green up on the screen really early here. I don't see them losing to Rice. Rice, not a very good football team. And for what talent they have is going to be squandered by whatever Arkansas can bring to the table. Just a mismatch all around. Arkansas should be able to win the game before a very tricky game. But they get Texas at home. So this is the interesting thing with this game. I'm not high on Texas this year. You'll know I have them going 8-4 if you've stayed up to date on this channel. I have Texas going 8-4, but I do have them winning this game. So I do have this as a loss for the Arkansas Razorbacks because I just think Texas overall is a better team. I mean, when you look, they do have a better running back in Bijan Robinson. There are still some solid players out there at wide receiver. The defense is still solid as well. And with Steve Sarkisian, he's going to have seen Arkansas so many times. And just the way that Alabama's offense has been able to give beatdowns to Arkansas in the past years. I remember it's been 52-3, 59-10, or whatever, those high scores like that. So I think this game can end up being pretty close depending on how well Arkansas plays the game. Overall, I do think Texas is the better team, clearly, and I do think Texas is going to end up winning the game. A home game against Georgia Southern. This should also fare to be no problem for the Arkansas Razorbacks as Georgia Southern. A solid Sun Belt team, but not a team that's going to give Arkansas really any big scares. So I do have the Razorbacks winning that one. And then they get into their toughest stretch of the year. Possibly. Of course, Arkansas's got a lot of tough stretches. They did not get a good draw from the opposing division at all. But they have to play Texas A&M. Now, technically, it's a neutral site game in Arlington, although it's going to, in my mind, feel like home field advantage for Texas A&M. Arkansas fans, they used to travel real well. And in my opinion, they still kind of travel well, but they haven't had the opportunity to travel. So I think some Arkansas fans are going to show up to this game, and I think they're going to make it loud. I think they're going to make it hard for Texas A&M, but overall, Texas A&M just is the much better team. When you look, now I'm not high on Texas A&M either. I think people are giving them too much credit. A lot of people say that, Haynes King is going to be a lot better than Kellen Mond was, and my argument to that was, then he would have started, right? Right. Because that's how depth charts work. If you're better, then you start. And now we don't even know if Haynes King is going to be the starter. Could end up being Zach Calzada. They're two very different styles of play. One's a pro style. One's a pro style quarterback. The other's a dual threat guy. So we'll have to see what happens there at Texas A&M. But just overall, some of the best players in their respective positions in the country. You got Jalen Weidermeyer, who I think is the best tight end in the nation. You got DeMarvin Leal, one of the best defensive linemen in the nation. And then you got Isaiah Spiller, possibly one of the best running backs in the entire nation. Where do all those guys fall? You'll have to find out on my list. Hey, self-promotion, right? Can't promote yourself. No one else will promote you. But for this game here, I think Arkansas can keep it substantially close. But I do think Texas A&M going to be able to pull away and win by double digits in this game. And then a road game against Georgia. If we remember last year when Georgia was still trying to figure out who their quarterback was, Arkansas gave Georgia a scare. That's not happening this year, especially with the game being on the road. It's not happening, Arkansas fans. I'm sorry, you're not going to beat Georgia. It's just not happening. I have Georgia winning the game. There you go. Now a game against Ole Miss, and here's another interesting one because I talked about Ole Miss highly a lot, and I think Ole Miss is going to go 9-3 this year. There was another video I just saw that came out as of recording this maybe 3 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago, whatever. The how Ole Miss going 8-4, and respectively, that's where Ole Miss is going to be. They're going to be one of those teams. But when you look at the talent that's on this team, hey, Jerrion Ealy can be one of the best backs in the nation. You don't have Elijah Moore anymore, but you still have, you still have Dontario Drummond. Yaboa's gone at tight end as well. They're going to have to find someone to fill in for him. But Matt Corral, I think, is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the nation. Now, didn't quite make my top 10 because I want to see him play good consistently. Had 11 interceptions in 2 games last year. He's got to clean that up. But if he can do that, he can be a top 10 quarterback easily in my mind, and there's no doubt about that. And for this game right here, I think Ole Miss's defense is going to improve. Not saying much. Ole Miss defense wasn't super good last year, but I do think it's going to improve this year. Overall, I think this can be an offensive game, an offensive shootout, but I do have Ole Miss winning the game. You saw their offense last year against Ole Miss, or not against Ole Miss. Ole Miss playing Ole Miss would be a very fun matchup. Interesting to see who to win that one. No, but when Ole Miss played Alabama last year, their offense was clicking, and it was an offensive shootout until Bama's defense had to step up and make some stops. So Ole Miss, I think, is going to be one of those teams to where they're going to score 40, 50, 60 points every game. And for this one, I just don't think Arkansas's defense nor the offense can keep up. So Ole Miss wins that one. Auburn here in the next game. And Razorback fans, hey, I have you winning this one. Yeah, I'm not high on Auburn this year either. I don't necessarily think Auburn is going to be the best team. I mean, with a new head coach in Josh Heupel, I'm expecting the offensive line to get a little bit better. But I know I don't follow recruiting super closely, but I do know that Gus Malzahn never really recruited offensive linemen. It just wasn't a thing that he did. And when Seth Williams gone to the draft, now they do have a good running back in Tank Bigsby. Could be one of the best backs in the nation. You'll see if he makes my top 10 on Saturday. And Bo Nix is still a pretty solid quarterback. My opinion on him has kind of declined over the past couple of years. But Bo Nix, still a solid player. They're going to have to find a new guy out there at wide receiver. I think Auburn and Arkansas are going to be on level playing field, though, because I think Auburn's defense is going to be pretty solid. So I think this is going to be one of those games that goes back and forth and back and forth. And I think it's a game that's going to be taken right to the fourth quarter. But in the end, I do think Traylon Burke steps up. Traylon Smith is going to make some incredible runs. And I think KJ Jefferson starts to take that next step in this game here against Auburn as the Razorbacks win the game to kick off their second half of the season. University of Arkansas at Pines Bluff. Yeah, the Golden Lions are going to win that one. Or the Lions, Golden Lions. I don't know. University of Arkansas, Pines Bluff. It's one of those teams, it's the team that every SC team schedules that they're going to get an easy win. So Arkansas wins that one. Home game against Mississippi State after the bye week. You'll know I'm not high on Mississippi State. And after now seeing that Kentucky gets a transfer, if you go back to my Kentucky video, now I think Kentucky's going 9-3, and I think they're going to beat Ole Miss. Earlier, I just thought the pass game was going to be too much for Kentucky, but now that they got that transfer on defense, I think they're going to win the game. So now seeing here Mississippi State, I'm not confident in this Mississippi State team. I don't know what it is. A lot of people seem to think Mississippi State's going to do pretty well. When the FBI first came out, they had them at number 8. I don't know if I'm missing something or everyone else is just overhyping this team, because I don't see the benefit here in Mississippi State. I think they can be vying for one of the worst teams in the SEC, and I have Mississippi State losing this one to the Arkansas Razorbacks. 2 very, very hard road games. You got to go on the road to LSU. Now, I'm not high on LSU either. And it's not necessarily, I know I've stated that before in a previous video, that I think LSU is on a sinking ship. It's not quite what I meant. I think LSU might be on a slight decline, if that's what I mean. And LSU, aside from that season in 2019, when they had one of the best teams in college football to ever exist, period, end of story, with Joe Burrow at the helm, they haven't really been able to duplicate that over any other season, especially with Orgeron a head coach. And just looking at the talent of this team, yes, there are some very, very good players. And yes, last year was a quote unquote fluke. But I'm just worried that it's of things to come for LSU. And I think no matter who plays quarterback at LSU, it's going to be a little bit of a slippery slope. But I just can't see LSU dropping this one at home against Arkansas, a team that is still trying to rise up. I'm not high on LSU, and my LSU preview was not my best content. But I do still have LSU winning the game, and I think LSU is going to win this one pretty easily. They're just too much of a talented team for this Arkansas squad. Alabama is up next, and just like the Georgia one, yep, sorry, no way you're winning that one. I got Bama going undefeated in the regular season. This might be the best and most talented defense that Nick Saban's ever had. And an offense that is surely to do some clicking as well. Bama winning that one. And then a weird Friday game for the SEC. So I don't think I've ever seen this, but Arkansas, Missouri going to be playing on a Friday. And this is a game where I feel like both teams could be coming in 5-6. Hey, I feel like both teams could be coming in 5-6, playing for bowl eligibility. You know, the winner gets to go to a bowl game, gets that extra game. And in my opinion, that's going to end up being the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, I'm not high on Missouri either, but I feel like especially if Arkansas comes into this game 5-6, like I'm predicting, and Missouri comes into this game 6-5, you'll have to find out what I think about that a little later. I believe sometime next week, then Arkansas has so much more to play for than Missouri. And I think regardless of the records, honestly, depending on record in this game, I think Missouri is going to open up be 7-4, 6-5 coming into this game, while Arkansas is going to be 5-6. And I have the Razorbacks winning that one. So there you go. Hey, it's split. So 6-6 is my record for the Razorbacks, and I could see a 3-game swing in either direction. But the thing is Arkansas's got a lot of hard games on the schedule. Just look at who they have to play on the road. Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, Bama. And if they get really, really lucky and things really, really click, I could see them winning 1, maybe 2 of those games. But things would have to really click for the Razorbacks. And then the worst case I have is 3-9. I don't think 3-9 would be a horrible record for Arkansas. I think it would be disappointing enough to Arkansas fans, especially with the amount of hype that's coming out this year. But there you go. 6-6 is my record for the Razorbacks. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at the West Virginia Mountaineers before we get into some power rankings and a top 10 players list on the weekend. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. Again, tomorrow is the West Virginia Mountaineers. Goodbye.